Good evening. Let's look at tonight's lesson, which is powers of 10, or what we called exponents. May have heard that word before, but didn't know what it meant. The VIC, the very important concept. What is an exponent? Okay, the exponent of a number says how many times to use the number in a multiplication. It could also be a division problem. It's usually a little tiny number that is placed above and to the right of another number. For example, here is the exponent or power. When we say powers of 10, this is the power of 10, and the 10 is the base. The 2, which is the tiny little number written up higher and to the right of it, is the exponent. 10 to the second power, or what we call 10 squared, means you will use the 10 twice. 10 times 10, and that's 100. Use it twice. It says it's used 2 times in this problem. Another way you could think of this is how many place values or 0 to the right of the number that you would add. And I'll get into that here in just a minute. All right, for an example, let's say we have 10 cubed, or to the third power. That's another way of saying that. Another way of looking at it is 10 times 10 times 10, which is 1,000. You'll notice there are 3 zeros placed to the right of the 1. 3. 10 to the fourth power is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. There's the pattern placed after the 1. Now, what if we use this in a real multiplication problem? All right, let's say we had 5 times 10 cubed, or 10 to the third power. Another way of thinking of this is 5 times 10 times 10 times 10. 5 times 10, 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. And 5 times 1,000 would be 5,000. You have 3 zeros, 3 zeros. This is also 3 zeros. Now, when you're multiplying decimals, so far we kind of looked at whole numbers. When you're multiplying decimals, power of 10 tells you how many places to move the decimal point to the right. Positive movement on a number line. Whenever you're looking at a number line, anything positive, or it goes forward, it goes to the right on the number line, whereas negative movement would go to the left or the opposite direction. Let's say that we had 2 and 25/100ths times 10 squared, or 10 to the second power. You can think of this as 2 and 25/100ths times 10, because you'll use it twice. There's 2 zeros. Or you could go ahead and do this and combine it here. 2 and 25/100ths times 100 would equal 225. Now, it might be easier if you think in this way. I'm going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. For example, here's the decimal point here. We're going to move it here. There's 1 place. And then here we're going to move it 2 places. And so when I move it over, you can kind of see the progression here. As I move it over, 1, 2, the decimal point ends up there. And if you don't really believe this, try it on a calculator. It's right. But you can do this without a calculator. It's really pretty easy. All right, another example. 5 and 1/10 times 10 cubed, or 10 to the third power. That's 5 and 1/10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Or we can say 5 and 1/10 times 1,000. And that would be 5,100. In other words, I can move that decimal point 3 places to the right. We move it once here. Once here, notice I added a 0, so I'd have another place value there. And then I move it one more time here. And you can see it used to be there, 1, 2, 3, and here it is here now. Remember, super important, you can always add zeros to the right if you need more place value. Don't add them to the left, add them to the right when you multiply. When you multiply. Now, what's the opposite of multiplying? Well, it's dividing, of course. This would be negative movement on a number line.
The water is now back on in the guidance hall. The water is back on.
So when you divide, it's negative movement. Instead of multiplying going to the right, dividing is going to be to the left. So instead of moving the decimal point to the right, when you divide, it's going to move to the left. All right. Now let's look. This is a whole number here. 560 divided by 10 to the second power. This is another way of saying 560 divided by 10 times 10, or 100. Now, because it's dividing, you're going to go to the left, and we will pretend, remember we were talking about this, that in whole numbers, there's kind of an unspoken decimal point right here. Move it back to place values, 1, 2, or 2. And that would be 1, 2. And the way it would look is like this. 5 and either 6/10 or 60/100. Here's another example. 6,324 divided by 10 to the fourth power. So that is 6,324 divided by 10,000, because 10,000 is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. 4 times. So we would move that decimal point, excuse me, 4 places to the left. So here, remember the unspoken thing about the whole numbers, it's here. We move it over 1 place. We move it over 2 places. We move it over 3 places. And here we've moved it over 4. It used to be here. Now it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And this gives us 6,324 10,000ths. Here's another example. Let's say that we had 7 6/10 divided by 10 to the third power. All right, that is 7 6/10 divided by 1,000, because 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. So we would move that decimal point 3 places, 3 times to the left. So here it is, 1. I'm going to have to add a 0 here, 2, and then 3. Remember that the decimal point used to be here, and we've moved it over 1, 2, 3 places. We had to add zeros there to make new place values. And this would be pronounced 76 10,000ths. But I use this little thing just to show you the movement. So you'll move the decimal point 3 places to the right. Now, sometimes you'll see a negative exponent being multiplied instead of a positive exponent being divided. This is a positive exponent being divided. It could be written like this. 7 6/10 times, it's multiplied, 10 to the negative third power. You could see it like that. It's the very same as this. It's just a different way of writing it. For a minute ago when we were doing this divided by, I think, 1,000, another way of saying that is 5 1/10 times 10 to the negative third power. I know it looks confusing. I'm teaching it to you because you could see it several ways on the EOG. All right, so I want to teach you different forms of what it could take. Our practice problems for tonight, there are 2 of them, A and B. This one is multiplying. This one is dividing. Remember, in multiplying, you're going to go to the right. Dividing, you will move the decimal point to the left. Don't forget that there is a kind of a decimal point right there. I mean, we don't write it, but it's there. Make sure that when you're multiplying, you go to the right, dividing to the left. All right. And if there's something you don't understand, back part of this video up to where you find the part where he explains it for you, okay? And if you still don't get it, email me or write it on section 4 of the homework guide, okay? Thanks. Good luck.